For those that do not know me, I'm Dan Rubin. I'm the Director of School Counseling here at Newton South. So happy to have you with us tonight for another installment of our junior post-secondary planning series. In just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to our College and Career Center counselor, Kathy Sabat, who is going to introduce our other panelists. I just want to acknowledge and thank Kathy for her work in coordinating this evening and all of our post-secondary planning events. As I said, we are recording this. It will be posted on the College and Career Center website. There will be an opportunity for questions and answers. We have the chat feature disabled for tonight's webinar. The Q&A box is open. If you have a clarifying question that comes up at any point during our event in response to any of the feedback or input from any of our panelists, please, by all means, enter your questions at any point in time. Some of the questions, though, we will be holding for the end of the webinar. And with that, I'd really like to not go any further, but turn it over to Kathy, who's going to introduce our panelists.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I'll just give you a quick introduction here of our panelists. And we're very appreciative for you to take extra time at the end of your days to join us and to share information. So I'm going to start with Jack Baer, who is from the University of Chicago. We have Rachel Mason from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. We have Alyssa Jones from the University of Maryland. And we also have Kate Shea from Westfield State University. We were going to have a representative from the University of Tampa, but they send their apologies for not being able to be here due to an illness. So I guess with that being said, I'll offer, each of you, if you could take turns introducing yourselves a little bit more, and then just sharing some brief information about your institutions. We'll start there. Thanks. So we can start with you, Jack, if you want.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your days to join this conversation. My name is Jack Baer. I'm one of the Senior Assistant Directors of Admission at the University of Chicago in kind of cold, slightly spitting Chicago, Illinois right now. It's really nice to be here. The University of Chicago is a lot of things. I think first and foremost, when you think about the undergraduate experience, you can think of it as really kind of getting the best of a liberal arts college, but also a research university. When students, as high school students apply to U Chicago, they apply to the singular undergraduate college that we have. We have 6,800 undergraduates at U Chicago pursuing more than 50 majors, more than 40 minors. A really kind of large piece of your time in the classroom will be our core curriculum. It's really kind of a defining piece of our curriculum. So of the 42 classes all students take, a third of them will be in our core. The core is the kind of interdisciplinary liberal arts foundation that all students are required to take. As part of the core, students take a sequence of classes, typically just 2 classes in 8 different disciplines. So they're civilizations, humanities, social science, art, music, foreign language, biological science, physical science, and math. So all the classes that you've taken at Newton South, you will come to U Chicago and just continue taking them to some degree. The second third of classes is your major. Like many schools, we require that our students declare a major. Our students do that at the end of their second year. So kind of you never apply to a specific major or program. You come to U Chicago, take classes in the core, take electives, and then ultimately declare your major at the end of your second year. The last third of classes is just elective, so building time into your time at U Chicago to just take classes that are really interesting for you. In the true liberal arts fashion, you can take classes across all of our departments. You could be an English major and take a math elective, or an arts major and take advantage of our environmental science program. So that's kind of a defining piece of the liberal arts, is that inherent flexibility. Beyond that, we also offer the best of a research university. Beyond just all of our research in our academic departments, we also have over 150 different research centers, committees, and institutes that we oversee. Things like the Fermi Lab and the Argonne National Lab, both of which are U.S. Department of Energy labs run through Chicago, but also things like the Franke Center for Humanities Research, the Social Science Research Center, as well as the Institute of Politics, for those who might not be STEM oriented. All told, over 80% of our students at U Chicago will do research. And we typically joke about it, but it's really the truth. We have more research for our undergraduates than we have undergraduates at U Chicago. So you can definitely do that anytime you want. Beyond that, we have really robust opportunities for internships. We have something called the Metcalf Internship Program. If you're interested in more, I will tell you more about that. But we're also located in a really vibrant city, and there's a lot of places that you're going to find community. We have a residential housing system. So upon coming to Chicago, every student is placed in a house, which is a collection of 80 to 100 students. It's your first community. Students eat together in their house. They compete against other houses. They go on trips with their houses. It's really kind of the bedrock of your student experience on campus. Beyond that, you'll have great access to the city of Chicago. We are located within the city. All of our students have a U-Pass. You have free access to all bus and rail lines in the city, as well as an arts pass. You have free or reduced admission to over 30 cultural venues in the city, whether that be the Art Institute, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, Steppenwolf Theater, which is also a great resource. I'll pause there. I could talk about UChicago for an hour because we're all trained to talk about our schools for an hour or 2 hours, but I'll pass it off to who's next. My apologies. I should know this.
Why don't we just go in the order in which you're introduced, if that works?
Fantastic.
Great. We'll
Yeah.
go with Rachel. That sounds great. Thank you.
And to be clear, I only know what my rank was. I didn't keep track of everyone else. Rachel Mason, Associate Director of First Year Recruitment at UMass Amherst. And as I like to describe myself, I am an unapologetically enthusiastic alum of the university. So if you are looking for unbiased, I don't have it, but I will always be factual and happy to answer any questions that you may have. We are the flagship campus for the university system in Massachusetts, located in Amherst, which is an amazing town in a great valley full of lots of activities and opportunities for our students. Interestingly enough, when we are in session, our population density is actually second only to Manhattan when you're talking about New England. So you may think that you're coming out to the wilds of Western Massachusetts, but trust me, we definitely have a lot going on here. Our undergraduate enrollment was right around 24,000 students. When you add in our graduate students, we're getting to close to 30,000. We are ranked in the top 26 public universities in the United States, really offering a wide variety of opportunities for our students, both in terms of academic, social, and research opportunities. We offer over 100 majors, which you do need to apply into. I can talk more about that entire process this evening. We too divide into schools and colleges. There's 10 schools and colleges that make up the university. So really providing our students a hub for while they are on campus, where they'll have the majority of their courses. They'll connect with an advisor that's connected to their major, as well as discover new opportunities for research, internship, co-ops, and then of course the all-important guidance in the next step as you're moving on, whether it be to a career or onto a postgraduate degree, which so many of our students are able to take advantage of. In terms of the programs that we are proud of, we're proud of all of them. And there's lots of ways that we can distinguish ourselves. Another thing that we're good at, right, Jack, is we know all of the rankings. So let's we'll share those. Among things that we're proud of is our ranking in terms of our engineering program, computer science, and Eisenberg School of Business Management, all top ranked in terms of public institutions in New England. Great value for our students, amazing opportunities. The other factors that set us apart, we have a strong commitment to our first generation students, and we're recently awarded the Gen Forward recognition because of not only the work that we're doing with our students, but the outcomes in terms of graduation. We are ranked as one of the top 30 LGBTQ friendly campuses across the country. The Stonewall Center was actually the first of its kind in terms of a resource for students in the United States back in 1985. I am particularly proud of the fact that we have the #1 agricultural program, the Stockbridge School of Agriculture. Not because I'm an avid gardener. I call plants invaders in my home. That's where they come to spend their last days. But because of it's an example of our amazing commitment to sustainability. We have been ranked as #1 in terms of food and dining in the United States. Much of our food comes from our farms, if not from the farm itself, then from locally sourced produce from the valley around us. So really a commitment to not only our students' quality of life, but also health, the environment, sustainable agriculture. Again, that's one of my personal ones that I love to talk about when we're looking at the immense of things that set us apart. We do have amazing opportunities in terms of student life. All of our students live on campus their first semester. The majority stay going into their sophomore, junior, and senior years, which is wonderful to see. We are a D1 institution, so many of our sports are D1. Lots going on the weekends. It's a great place. I'd be happy to speak with you about it further, but I will now turn the mic over to my colleagues.
I believe I was next in the order. So hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here this evening and for listening to all of us speak about our schools and joining in this conversation. My name is Alyssa Jones. I am an admissions counselor at the University of Maryland, and I'm actually the representative for the state of Massachusetts. So I'll be the one that you'll be in touch with during the entirety of your application. So the University of Maryland is the state of Maryland's flagship university. We are one of the largest universities in the state of Maryland. We have over 30,000 undergraduate students, and we offer over 100 majors. So definitely a lot to choose from. And there are a lot of ways to make the university feel smaller. So we like to say we have all of the benefits and opportunities provided with a big school, but you can also make the school feel smaller and get all those benefits of the smaller, more tight-knit community of smaller schools as well. We have a number of living and learning programs that all students are automatically reviewed for as long as they apply by our early action deadline, such as the Honors College, College Park Scholars, Global Communities, which is focused on learning about different cultures. We also have a first-year research program that students can participate in that has research opportunities both in the STEM fields and in the humanities. So that is definitely one of the ways that you can find your people and your community on campus. But another one of the ways to sort of find your niche on campus is through one of our over 800 clubs and student organizations that we have here on campus. We have really everything you can think of, from student government to a cappella and dance groups, religious clubs, social clubs. We even have a squirrel watching club and a lettuce appreciation club. So there's some very, very niche clubs on campus. And if there is, for some reason, some club that doesn't exist yet, you can always create a new one. If you can't tell from the lettuce appreciation club, it's pretty easy to start new clubs as well. We are also located in College Park, Maryland, which is a small college town, but we're only about 45 minutes away from Washington, D.C. on the metro. We are actually the only public research institution in the Washington, D.C. Beltway. So we like to say we have all of the opportunities of a city school, but we still have that traditional college campus feel, those big green quads with all of the academic buildings that all surround it, those green spaces where you can often see students playing spike ball, hanging out, picnicking, studying on those nice sunny days. With being so close to Washington, D.C., there's of course a lot of opportunities for professional development. A lot of our students are going to be taking the metro into the city for internship opportunities, whether that's in the White House, in the Chamber of Commerce, the Department of Education, NASA. We have a lot of partnerships with a lot of various organizations in the Washington, D.C. area, but we also are within commuting distance of Baltimore and Annapolis as well. So you have sort of three major cities that you can really take advantage of. There's also, of course, the social aspect of being really close to DC. If you're feeling like you want to get off campus, it's a really, really easy metro ride away to get to all of the free Smithsonian museums, all of the monuments, the historic neighborhoods of Georgetown, and really just have a weekend away from campus. That's where I'm going to stop as well. We're going to talk a lot more a little bit later, but I'm going to pass it off to Kate and she'll tell you about Westfield.
Thank you, Alyssa. I appreciate it. Again, thank you all for giving us some of your time tonight, as we all do love speaking about our institutions and passing along this knowledge. My name is Caitlin Shea. I am the Senior Assistant Director of Admission at Westfield State University. I've worked at Westfield for almost 20 years at this point, which is kind of a testament to the campus. We are a four-year public university located in Westfield, Massachusetts. So just past UMass Amherst, a little bit further west. And so when you do think about that, you know, way out in Western Mass, that's That's what you're kind of getting when you think about Westfield. With our we've got about 4,000 full-time undergrads, so significantly smaller than UMass Amherst. And campus kind of looks like it does behind me, with that big green space right in the middle, right? So, as I mentioned, we're a 4-year public university, which basically means that we are governed by the state, the Department of Higher Education, here in Massachusetts. And what they do is basically set some standards and requirements in terms of courses that students must take during their high school years in order to be eligible for admission to any of the state universities. We are a great distance from your location. We're about 2 hours away. So it's a nice distance where it takes, mom, dad, parent, or guardian, a little bit of planning to get to see you as a student, but it's a nice distance away so that you can get home if you need to. So about 2 hours away, which is great. We have about 35 different academic majors. Most popular majors include criminal justice, education, psychology, business, and communication. We also have an extremely competitive nursing major on campus. We have over 70 clubs and, over 70 minors and concentrations within our academic programs. And we do have a similar core as the University of Chicago, like Jack described. We do have over 70 clubs and organizations as well on campus. We do guarantee housing for all 4 years. So we've got a variety of housing options. We don't require that you live on campus, but we do strongly encourage it, as it does really promote that sense of campus community and fit for that student, fit and feeling of belonging on campus. It's funny that Rachel mentioned dining, and I'm going to follow up on that. Because several years ago, we went the way of the UMass model, and we had UMass dining on our campus for about 2 years, transitioning us from that bigger kind of, catering company to locally sourced and kind of homegrown. So about 75% of our food comes within 100 miles of the university. There's a lot of focus on fresh ingredients, clean eats, smaller healthy portions, I should say. And local farms and organizations. So we do pride ourselves on that as well. And it's always great to follow up when UMass talks about it, because we're just as proud of them. So we have some signature programs at Westfield, and I know that we're providing a lot of information to you, so I'll kind of end with this. We do have a Certified Commonwealth Honors program for students who have a 3.5 GPA and are invited to apply. We have an Urban Education program, which is a program geared towards first-generation college students who maybe need a little bit of extra assistance with that transition from high school to college. There is a 5-week summer school program associated with that, and you have the opportunity to earn up to 9 college credits during the summer prior to even entering and matriculating in the fall. So it's a great program where you're with a group of other students taking college courses, making friends, networking, meeting professors, and getting 3 college courses under your belt before you've even matriculated. So it's great, puts you ahead of the game. We have an incredible learning disabilities program. So this is a program geared towards students who have documented learning disabilities and or ADHD. This is an admission-based program, so it goes beyond the traditional disability services or access center. Documentation is required right off the bat with the application. I'm the point person within the admission office. For those students who are applying to the learning disabilities program or even have questions, I'd be more than happy to speak to you. We are a teaching institution. So all of our classes are taught by professors. We don't have any of those teaching assistants. However, I will say we have incredible number of opportunities for students to conduct undergraduate research, not only within each individual major, but we also have an award-winning CURCA, or Center for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activity organization on campus. And of course, we offer internships in all of our majors, and an incredible career center to help our students kind of propel their career or postgraduate experience after leaving Westfield State. So I look forward to speaking with you, answering some questions, and thanks again for coming.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. And I honestly, I have to say, every time I hear about the different schools, I really want to go back to college. It's like, I want to do that. I want to try that. I mean, so we really appreciate kind of taking a deeper look at at all of your schools. So we have some questions kind of organized by topics, I guess. So the first topic that we're going to talk about is sort of admissions trends, since we're kind of finishing this admission cycle with the class of 2022 and kind of just getting started with the class of 2023. So I'll start with the first question, and we can just, you guys can kind of decide who wants to answer it. So with the most recent admission cycle ending, what can you share about your application review, and how did you determine fit with your institution? Does anybody want me to repeat that?
You can start. Yeah, absolutely. So I would say first and foremost, we are, as admissions officers, I think everyone here can probably vouch for the fact that, we are fully aware of what has transpired over the past 2 years. We are very understanding of how your world has been impacted as high school students, knowing that, a significant portion of your high school career was impacted significantly, just as, students on our campus were impacted as well. So we know that, and we're hopefully, I'm knocking on wood as I say this, kind of getting back to a normal place. But in terms of the University of Chicago, things remain and have remained very similar in terms of our review. We take a holistic approach to application review. So that means essentially we take everything that you submit. So test scores, transcripts, letters of recommendation, essays, extracurricular lists, et cetera. And we really take everything into account to create an image of you as both a community member and as a scholar. And then based upon that image, render an admission decision that makes the most sense for you as an applicant, but also makes sense for us as an institution with many different priorities. So we have no set, and we've never had any set benchmark in terms of GPA or testing you need to show us in order to be admitted to the university. So that's something that we've always prided ourselves on. It's a very intentional process. We want to admit students who are academically prepared, but also great fits. To kind of speak to the second part of the question, how do you assess fit, and how are we choosing who to ultimately admit? It really shows in a lot of different places, if you are a fit. And when we say fit, I think it's important to kind of define that, because I think we all have a sense of what it is, but what is it actually? And when I see fit in a student, it really means that student's perspective or passion really, or their experience aligns with our values as a community. And so, we are really looking at it, and we'll see fit in a number of different places. I think one of the most important places is going to be in your supplemental essays. U Chicago requires 2 essays in addition to your personal essay, a Why U Chicago essay. So that's where you tell us how much you wax poetic about U Chicago and let us know what you like about us. And then also our extended essay, which is basically a creative writing problem solving prompt, where we ask students things like, find X, or this year we asked, if the moon is made of cheese, pick a celestial object and tell us what it's made out of. So a quirky question really kind of gets at the heart of, when you encounter a problem, how do you approach it? Because there's no clear right answer to many things that you'll encounter in college and your postgraduate life. So we want to see how you kind of react to that. So, students who approach those essays, in a mature way, in a creative way, we see as really great fits for the University of Chicago, which is a university that really prides ourselves on thinking creatively, being innovators within and across disciplines, critical thinkers. So that's what I'd say.
Anybody else wanna? Is there anything
We would
different?
all support exactly what Jack said. I would absolutely say ditto in terms of the entire process.
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit here as well. Like Jack said, the University of Maryland also has always reviewed each individual application holistically and individualistically. So we're looking at every aspect of your application. But I think more generally, something that I've really appreciated since the start of the COVID pandemic is that the Common App has included that additional information section. And that's really where you can provide the context on how the pandemic has affected you. And of course, since we were reviewing applications holistically, we're looking at that. We're getting the full story of your entire academic experience and how the pandemic fits into that, how all of the different factors in your life are telling your story, telling your academic story, telling your story of your high school experience. So I think using that space to your benefit to provide us with the context of what was going on is a really useful tool that I'm glad the Common App implemented, and also helps us to understand you a lot better. And I mean, also ditto to what Jack was saying about fit. When we are determining if a student is going to be a good fit for the University of Maryland, we're looking at a lot of the similar things. We're reading through your essay, we're looking at your extracurriculars, we're trying to figure out what your passions are. We don't have supplemental essays, we just have some short, like complete the sentence, short answers. And that's really where you can let your personality shine a little bit. And that's also what we're looking at to see what your interests are. We want you to be intellectually curious. We want you to be passionate. We really want you to be involved as well, so that we know that you're going to be a good fit on our campus community as well.
Great. Okay, let's move on then. So the next question is, will there be any changes to your admissions process for the high school class of 2023 or your class of 2027? And then the second part of that is, what is your testing plan for the upcoming year?
Happy to jump in there. In terms of the admissions process itself, there are no dramatic changes that are coming forward. In terms of the requirements, the essay, supplementals, and so forth, that will remain consistent. UMass had decided in terms of the testing factor that we would be 3 years as a trial in terms of test optional. And we anticipate, well, of course, we will maintain that, but I also anticipate that we will probably extend that for at least a year or two beyond, because we really want to have a better sense of what impact SAT, ACT scores have on the admissions process and in helping us understand the student's likelihood for success. That's not to say that we think that there is necessarily an impact, but we want to really have all that data before we make any final decisions moving forward. So I anticipate that as a piece. One big thing that has changed in our office in terms of managing, and I hope this doesn't go too far into the next upcoming question, is that we've hired more readers. Because we don't want to change the volume of applications that our readers need to process. We want them to be able to continue to have a holistic review process that really is comprehensive and that gives fair consideration to all the applicants, so that even as that trend continues, and if we do see more applications, it's not going to impact how we are reading a student's application and the care that we give, because we know that students spend so much time on that piece of paper that we want the time to enjoy it.
So I'll just jump in and say we don't have any major changes kind of heading down the road. We do plan to continue to be test optional unless the Department of Education tells us otherwise. But that is our plan. However, I would encourage students who are interested in maybe those more competitive majors, for us that would be nursing, to still take the SAT or ACT. I can't guarantee that going forward that program will continue to be SAT optional. Again, like Rachel mentioned, we're certainly looking at the students that we've admitted over the past couple of years since having been test optional due to COVID, to see what kind of impact that's had on, the retention and success of our admitted and deposited students. But with those really kind of structured and intense majors, we want to make sure that students are prepared and they're demonstrating to us that they are prepared and ready for those challenges. So, I would encourage students that if they are considering those more intense and competitive majors, to still take the SAT or ACT.
Thank you. Jack, I'm not sure if you were planning on jumping in there. No.
Super quick, no changes. implemented a test optional policy in 2018. We'll be test optional in the future.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
are also still continuing our test optional policy, and similar to what Rachel and Kate said, we're sort of taking it year by year, but at least for next year's application cycle, we're going to be test optional.
Thank you, Alyssa. So, a couple of you made some reference to the increased number of applications in recent years, whether that's a relationship with test optional policies or just broader trends in admissions. One of the questions that we hear most frequently from students and families is, with so many applicants, how does a student distinguish themselves amongst the applicant pool? I've heard a little bit with regard to supplemental essays as a real key critical opportunity, but any other sort of tips, suggestions, feedback on what gives you the most insight into who these applicants are?
We keep waiting to see. Kate, are you going to go first?
Oh, sure, great. I mean, I think it's what you mentioned, truly, and I love reading letters of recommendation. I kind of I get excited when I see a couple of them from different teachers and counselors, and the honesty, and oftentimes a student may not want to doesn't not feel comfortable, but doesn't bring up a challenge they may have encountered, or doesn't recall it, or doesn't think it had a big impact on who they are or their character. And a teacher or a counselor will bring that up in the recommendation. And that's a great thing. I read one today and I was kind of like, oh, okay. You mentioned nothing about that in his application. And it's something to consider. And it's definitely defines a student in some ways. So I love those opportunities to learn more about a student. But I just think utilizing those writing samples and those personal statements to the best of the student's ability, and think about it. And it doesn't have to be earth-shattering, right? It just has to be unique to you. I don't know if there's a better way to put it, but it's our way to learn about the student, and we love reading them.
I'm going to support that. It really is the entire piece of it. And I worry that students at this stage in the game, right, we're talking primarily to juniors getting ready to go into their senior year, and there's the question of what can I do in this last few kind of cramming. And just like cramming for a test, there's not a lot you can do to move the needle in terms of adding on additional activities or new discoveries or anything of that sort. What I really encourage you to do is first have some confidence in your experiences, and that it's enough for us, and make sure that you present it in a way that is easily accessible. Don't make us dig too hard to find those pieces, and that you will find the right fit. It is there's a lot of students applying, but you are looking at a lot of different schools, and you have great guidance from your counselors and other advisors to help you select a number of great options for you. So I really encourage you throughout the process, again, to not put undue pressure on yourself to make dramatic changes in the last 4 to 5 months, and also to know at the end of the day that the admissions process is we are looking for a reason to admit you. We are not looking for reasons to refuse a student. So if you don't find a place at our institutions, it's not because you weren't great, and it wasn't because you did something wrong. It's just that for whatever reason, that particular admission cycle, it wasn't the right time. But certainly there will be other schools that it was a good fit. So that may be hopefully a little bit of comfort in that process.
Thank you. Just a sort of editorial comment. I heard in there, Kate, particularly in your response, that sometimes a student sharing their story of maybe a challenge they overcame We'll oftentimes have conversations where students might feel like revealing something that was a challenge or an obstacle is somehow sharing a vulnerability or something that might harm them. And what I'm hearing from you is that sometimes telling that story demonstrates resilience and resolve and growth in a way that hiding that story, doesn't reveal. So thank you for that. Really appreciate hearing that. As a follow-up question, just kind of not parting words, we're halfway through, but just words of wisdom or on this front end with where we are, just tips for the class of 2023 as they are starting to embark in this process. Rachel, I heard from you, about sort of extending and balancing out that list. And making sure that, really a good list has a range of selectivity that are all matches. But what other kinds of pieces of wisdom might you share with students at this stage of their journey?
Sure, I can hop in here. So first piece of advice, sort of just logistically stay organized, especially this early in the game. Start early with being organized. Create a master calendar as you're finding schools that you're deciding you want to apply to. Write down all of those dates and deadlines for applications, for scholarships, for financial aid. Have it all on one master calendar so it's all in one place and you make sure you're not missing any important dates or deadlines. And then other thing, now that, again, knock on wood, hopefully the world is opening up a little bit more, visiting schools, in my opinion, is one of the best ways to really get a feel for the culture of the school, for what the school feels like, for if it feels like a place that you're going to be able to call home for 4 years. If you're able to visit a school, go on a tour, talk to the tour guide, talk to current students, ask them about what life is like on campus, ask them about their day-to-day life. That's really the best way to get an idea of what it's going to be like to be a student there and get an idea of a way to envision yourself as a student there.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Ditto. But beyond that, I think, Alyssa, you mentioned visiting campus. I think visiting campus is a great thing to do. You can never really totally replicate, like the feelings that you have when you step on a campus, when you feel the energy and the synergy of, the students going to class and the traffic on the streets, right? Like there's something that you simply can't replicate by virtual session. I think another great way, if you can't do that, attend virtual sessions sponsored by the admissions office, but also look beyond the admissions office. Go to Instagram and let's say you're really interested in like the intramural sport, like a specific intramural team at UChicago. Every single one of our intramural teams has an Instagram page. Follow those accounts, not necessarily sponsored or curated by admission, because you're going to find that they're often incredibly authentic. They kind of present kind of like a different view than you would if you just followed, like UChicago admissions or UChicago on Instagram. The other thing that I would say is, Newton South is an incredible community where students are incredibly high achieving and focused. And I know that, this was me certainly in high school where I was so excited about the college process. It really kind of like took over a lot of my like junior and senior year because I was just so excited to like visit different schools and talk to my parents about it. And I don't regret any of that, but I will say the whole college search and application process can be a little bit consuming. So if you feel that, you're like, oh my gosh, we're only talking about college tours and where am I applying? And, it's dominating every discussion at the dinner table and you want to kind of set some boundaries. I will typically tell students, set aside 2 hours a week on a designated day where that is your time as a family or as a unit or, whoever with your guardian that you'll discuss college. Because it can be a really exciting process. It can be really daunting. And it can be, once again, a little bit consuming. So if you're feeling like that, maybe you're prone to do that, set some boundaries, enjoy high school, like really really make sure you're still living your best life in high school and not just focusing upon, that eventual transition. You're going to end up in a great place wherever you go.
That's great. Those are all great bits of advice. And, anytime, you guys can emphasize like trying to de-stress and take time to enjoy, the moment in high school is valuable. So we're going to switch to just kind of questions about application and some of the student resources available on your campuses. So for those of you that want to share, how do you assist students who do not have a major in mind, where I don't know if the statistic is like 60% of kids or more are applying undecided. So would be curious to know how you assist students that aren't sure. And do you require a major to evaluate for admission? So whoever would like to take that one.
So at UMass, you do need to apply to a major. Our one caveat, or our 4 or 5 caveats, are the exploratory majors, which is our way of clustering undecided, grouping them based on similar interests. So students are able to apply undecided or exploratory track to a specific school or college, like the School of Social and Behavioral Sciences, Natural Sciences, Art and Humanities would be examples. We also actually have a exploratory track in, for example, Eisenberg School of Business that students can't actually apply to. And we put our students that we would like to admit, but can't quite put them directly into the major of their choice. But that is certainly one thing to keep in mind when considering UMass, is the students do need to apply to a specific major. And we can help support our students in their exploration of majors once they're on campus. Advisors certainly help students who either are in that exploratory track or who are in other majors, and through the course of taking different classes, discover something that they didn't realize they loved and would like to either transfer to or double major or minor. We see a lot of that happening on campus. And I know we'll talk more about specific majors that you do need to apply into. That, for example, UMass, you cannot transfer into nursing. You can't discover that in your sophomore year, unfortunately. It doesn't work that way. But the vast majority of the 100+ majors that are offered are ones that students can move around in and settle into and explore and really discover during their year. I think that's the best part of college.
At Westfield, you can apply undeclared, and we call it undeclared exploratory. We've got probably about a quarter of our students who do apply undeclared, and we do our best to educate students who have been admitted as undeclared to, attend, especially now, right, virtual events or at our admitted student days, come see what resources we have for you, including peer advisors, including our advising staff, the Career Center, personality testing, interest inventories. I mean, we can help the student in so many ways. And I think that for students, it's just as important to know what you don't like as it is to know what you do like. And so we can help with all of that. But I think the biggest piece is our advising center, where there's a huge commitment to students to kind of help them explore and navigate that process. And again, like Rachel mentioned, the only program that you can't transfer into once you're a student is our nursing program. It is a direct admit.
For UMD, you also can apply undeclared. We actually have an advising home here called Letters and Sciences, which is where all students that are undecided on a major will be paired with an advisor to take those exploratory courses. Similar to Westfield, actually, about a quarter to a third of our students do come in completely undecided. So you'll be able to work with your advisor to figure out what your passions are and declare your major before the end of your sophomore year. Something else I always like to throw in here is we do review all of our applications major blind. So if there is a major that you're maybe considering, you can definitely put that as your intended major on your application. And even if it is a more selective major, that's not going to hurt your chances of getting admitted to the university as a whole. You may just be admitted into the Letters and Sciences undecided major rather than your intended major. But for most majors, once you're here at UMD, it's a non-competitive track into even our more selective majors, and you can switch into them a little bit later.
All of our students at UChicago arrive at the college undeclared. On their application, students do have the opportunity, and they are required to tell us their top 3 academic interests, but that is in no way them indicating that those will be their majors, and we don't pay much attention to that in our review process. Fully understanding that through the core, through the flexibility of the liberal arts, it's very often the case that students choose to change their minds. So all of our students arrive undeclared. Upon coming to UChicago, all of our students are paired with an academic advisor who will follow them through their 4 years, really kind of helping them navigate the core, helping them, if they don't have a sense of what they'd like to major in, helping them sample many different things so that they can hopefully filter through and ultimately declare one by the end of their 2nd year. After a student's 2nd year, the opportunity to change their major, once again, is there for students if they would like to. I have a colleague who changed his major 3 times after his 2nd year, graduated in 4 years with no issue. So yes, there's a lot of academic flexibility and support for finding your major and changing your major throughout your time at the university.
Great, thank you all. Now, changing gears just a little bit as far as student experience once they arrive on campus. For any students who might receive accommodations through an IEP or 504 plan or other accommodation plan in high school and have appropriate documentation of a disability, could you just describe briefly, what the process might look like on your campus for advocating for disability accommodations as a student?
I can jump in. So I love talking about it. Westfield State has an incredible program with incredible staff, truly. There are, with you guys in Newton, you have a great number of institutions in the area that offer solid support to students who have documented learning disabilities, at the post-high school level. So ours is an admission-based program where the students apply, they check off a box on the application. Students are evaluated right off the bat, kind of as I would evaluate any other student, right? So in the admission office, we are not able to consider testing in any shape or form. So when your information is requested and comes to the admission office, and everything comes to the admission office, I look at what testing was administered and when it was administered. We do require that the testing have been completed within the past 3 years. Ideally, the adult norm tests have been used, so after age 16. We're looking for a cognitive test and an achievement test to be submitted. Additional testing in the IEP and 504 are certainly helpful, but I'm looking just at what tests and when they were administered. I add them to the file. I do my review, which includes, a GPA recalculation. We do recalculate every student's grade point average. The Department of Higher Ed in Massachusetts does require that. And a kind of roundup of the units. So we are looking for all students, to have taken college preparatory units and complete the 17 specific required college prep units as required by the Mass DHE. So I'll do that kind of legwork off the bat, organize, the recommendations and any supplemental information. And then I send everything over to our Bonacos Academic Center, and they are the staff who are reviewing the testing. It's important to note that decisions are not made specifically on the testing. They're looking at a diagnosis first and foremost, right? So the program, the students who we admit to the program must have a primary or second disability of a specific learning disability and or ADHD. They're looking at the types of supports the students offered. They're looking at accommodations versus modifications, the type of supports the student's getting. Is the student succeeding with the accommodations that are being provided? Typically, in order to be considered for the program, we're looking for at least a 2.5. We really do need students to be succeeding in their college preparatory courses with the accommodations that are being provided. At Westfield State, the curriculum is not modified. It is not a special education program. It is, Westfield State students are students first. The students in the learning disabilities program receive those accommodations that they're entitled to, reasonable accommodations, plus some perks. So what that means is that they're set up with a program advisor. So think about it as students and parents. You may have a great relationship with your school counselor or your special ed liaison. And then you go to college or university, and we've got 4,000 students and professors who you've never had. How do you get those accommodations that you're entitled to? And you are entitled to them. That's where your program advisor comes in. You get priority registration for the first 2 years. And so I'm sure my other reps can attest that priority registration is like this huge, valuable thing. You know, you register for classes before anyone else. So you're really guaranteed the time of class, especially that's important if the student takes any type of medication for maybe attention issues. They take it in the morning. We don't want to give them 3 o'clock classes. You know, but it also, you know, really increases the chances that you get a professor who works best with your learning style. And your program advisor is going to help you with that as well. We've got academic monitoring, you know, between professors and your program advisor, because you know, mom, dad, parent, or guardian can't reach out. You're an adult when you go to college. And so this is an overwhelming process. And our goal is to help these students become strong self-advocates and great independent learners. And so I would encourage anyone who is receiving accommodations while in high school, apply to the program. What happens if a student isn't a good fit, isn't deemed a good fit for the program? They're referred back to the general admission area, so me, and I review them as I would a traditional applicant. So I don't look at their testing. That's not part of my review. I am looking and making a decision on the student as I would any other traditional student. And just because you may not be accepted into the Learning Disabilities Program doesn't mean that you may not be able to receive reasonable accommodations. So those are always possible. And then the biggest piece that I'll end with is that this program is free. So there's no additional cost, where a lot of these programs, especially within the New England area, have an additional cost on top of the tuition and fees, and ours is completely free. So yeah.
That's great. Anybody else want to say anything briefly, or closing in on our hour?
Oh, I will jump in very briefly for the kind of traditional, because Kate and I both share this this passion in regards to learning differences. But you know, certainly at any college or university, you're going to find a disability support office. They are staffed by amazing individuals, and I want to focus in on the key that they are staffed, which means that they are there during the summer. The consideration for what you need on campus should be part of that exploration for a college or university. You will need documentation. It will vary from institution to institution, so it's very important to contact them. The number one predictor for success, we know this across the board, no matter what school you go to, is whether or not you connect with disability support, and you do so early. Do so before there is a challenge. For students who are going in October, November, or Lord, please save us, not in December, it's going to really be a challenge for our professionals to support you. And to keep in mind, as you're going to a traditional school, supports really are about accessing. So in terms of any additional teaching and instruction, that is not going to be a piece of the overall landscape, but there are just so many options out there. So explore them, have that be part of your college search, ask those questions, and get your documentation in order.
Great advice. Great. And I think this will be our last question. And that would be, if you could let all of us know about the assistance you have for first-year students and helping them transition from high school to college and making them feel welcomed. And just briefly touch on any type of personal counseling that you have available on your campuses.
So I can kind of kick this off and keep it brief. I know we have about 4 minutes left. So yeah, I mean, at the University of Chicago, we have kind of very similar programming to many other universities in terms of like an orientation program. So a week before the first week of class, which is typically the first week of class at U Chicago is typically the first week of October. Students come to campus, they become oriented to the campus community. As I mentioned, everyone is situated in their house, and every house will have a number of kind of like bonding experiences. They'll go on trips, they'll have workshops on things like how to navigate the L, which is our Chicago Transit Authority line in the city. And, you know, for those from the South, you know, like what coat should you buy for the winter? So that's kind of like an orientation week. It's a very grounding experience for many of our students. And your house will kind of, once again, be kind of with you throughout the course of your time at the college. And then beyond that, you're going to have your academic advisor, you're going to have a career advisor. So everyone before even coming to Chicago will have a conversation with a designated person who will follow them through their 4 years to make sure that they're supported in terms of, finding and taking advantage of really substantive career advancement opportunities. So they're fantastic. And then also within the house, you'll have a number of resources. You'll have a resident assistant who's typically an undergraduate at the college, there to be a resource if you need to connect with an office, if you have questions about, how to find work-life balance, they'll be there. You'll be living also with a resident head who's typically a PhD student at the university. They'll be there to be a resource as well as plan kind of smaller activities. And then the final resource who will live with you is your resident dean, who's a tenured faculty member at the university, kind of seen as the intellectual steward of your community. They'll plan larger events as well as kind of be a resource for you. So there's kind of tiered supports, there's resources. We have tutoring programs, we have writing centers, we have kind of a number of different things. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for kind of support in many different ways at the university.
Yeah, I'll hop in. Definitely a lot of similarities. Like Jack said, with UChicago, we have an orientation that takes place over the summer. It's a 2-day orientation, so students will get to stay in a residence hall. They will also be paired with their advisor and register for classes right there during orientation, and also learn about the traditions on campus, student life, how to seek out resources, how to study, how to have that work-life balance and all of that. And then once they get to campus, they will also have a resident assistant in their dorm, in their hall, and that will also be a person they can go to as well if they do have any concerns about roommate issues, class issues, seeking out resources on campus. And then in terms of counseling, our counseling center offers licensed therapists, licensed psychologists, psychiatrists, and then also more general counseling if you need to get resources about like healthy eating or time management or study habits. We also have those programs available as well.
I think an important thing to note about just any transition is that so many of our campuses focus on the transition being more than an orientation before classes start, that programming continues throughout the year because it really does make a big impact. So to connect often and to be aware of what those different programs are throughout, they are both fun and they're educational, and honestly, they mean that you're more likely to be successful. And that's what it really comes down to. It's your experience. So take advantage of those programs. They are there for a reason, and they really do work.
And I think for us, some of our biggest successful programs are when, administrators go into the residence halls and make it easy for students to access that information. How to access the Career Center as a first-year student. What can they do for you? Because oftentimes, using that example, students are like, well, I don't need a resume just yet. I'm not applying for jobs just yet, but there are so many things you can do to explore and, utilize those resources. So, whether it be an honors program, whether it be study skills strategies, whether it be how to use the library, it's important. And I think our professors are really good with that too, because, we have a first year programming, academic programming as well. But, these professors kind of thrive on the fact that these are new students. This is exciting. We have to teach them about the great things about our campus and how to utilize all the resources we have. So it's a campus-wide, effort every year. And it's exciting. And we just look forward to bringing these new students in to have this college experience.
We are up against 8 o'clock here. I want to thank our panelists so much for representing your universities, for extending your workday into these evening hours. But we're so appreciative of your commitment to supporting students from Newton South and all of the high schools that you see applicants from. But there are a couple of questions that we received that were school specific that we might share, very highly individual, that we might share with the panelists and get back to the respondent or the question askers. But for now, we are going to wrap up the evening presentation. Again, just our great thanks. Thank you to everyone who joined us viewing live tonight. This will again be posted probably as early as tomorrow, but we'll send a message out to the junior class once this is posted online. So thanks so much. I hope everyone has a great
Everybody.
evening and we really appreciate it.